Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Ranger Show. My name's Russell Gerber, of course, with you for the next half an hour or so. We will be going over the live cameras, various locations, if we can see what we get coming down to the waterholes. And of course, we'll go through a couple of our highlight videos from the last week or two. But as always, I'd love to have your comments and feedback. And of course, any questions that you might have lingering on the brain from watching the cameras. And hello to Pat from Florida. It's great to have you with us. Stephanie. It is lovely to wake up to a giraffe indeed. I've been awake for a while, thankfully, but it is 2:30 in the afternoon here. And hello to Alison from Liverpool. Thank you all for giving us a shout out. It's always a pleasure. As we watch this giraffe slowly cleaning up all the leaves off the vegetation around the waterhole. We were chatting about last week that giraffe, one of the great benefits, of course, of being so tall. The only real competition for food that you have is from elephants. Otherwise, you have the advantage of being able to reach all the various leaves that all the other browsers are unable to do. With that, we often see these pretty clear browsing lines in a lot of the vegetation. You see at around about a certain level, there's almost no leaves to be found. From that height down to the ground, and that would be most of your your browsers like your kudu and nyala. And of course the giraffe. But as you say, Stephanie, it's always nice to wake up to a giraffe right in front of you like this. And one of the great benefits of the cameras, we just don't disturb the animals and we can get such nice close-up views, even though this might be the rear end view of this particular giraffe. But then again, maybe she thinks this is her best side. Who knows? Hello to Magda and Jean. It's great to hear from you. Susie from Montana. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We've got another view at one of our other cameras. Let's pop over to Rosie's quickly. Where it seems we are being inundated by giraffe. Where we can watch this beautiful young giraffe having a drink of water. As you can see, it's a long way down. And you always get that great flick of water as they come to stand back up again. For any of you out there are into your photography, and if you can time it well enough with capturing images on the website, You can get some great shots of giraffe just after they drink, where they lift up their necks like that, flick up the water. What's again so nice about the camera is very often when giraffes drink like this, they're very anxious. They don't tend to be this relaxed when you're on a vehicle nearby, or even more so if you're on foot. All the animals react quite differently depending on whether you're on foot or in the vehicles. And simply because the animals have good memories and good instincts. Of course, humans have been top predators in the wild for many, many generations. And there is the theory put forward that with our eyes facing forward, we're recognized as predators. So a lot of the animals are very nervous, or can be very nervous when they see you on foot. And once they get used to the vehicles on game drive, they tend to be much more calm. We have been spoiled by the giraffes to start today. And we got a question from some of our viewers about how do the giraffes get the blood all the way up their neck? That's a very good point. It's a long way up, as you can see. And one of the great adaptations for giraffe is that they have a much higher blood pressure than you or I. They also have very powerful valves on the blood and vein systems in the neck in particular. It can stop the flow of blood in the wrong direction, particularly when you're putting your head down for a drink. They also have a very large heart in relative terms compared to the rest of its body. And it's all to do with the circulation system or circulatory system. In order to move that blood around, you need a big, powerful muscle, and you need the means to do so, which is, of course, these blood vessels, capillaries, veins, and arteries that are adapted for this higher blood pressure. So thicker walls of the veins and arteries. That, of course, helps them not to burst or to have any sort of an aneurysm, which is a threat to giraffe. It's also why they can't keep their heads down like that for too long. You also see them flick their head up like that after drinking. Not only is it a risk from the blood rushing down towards the head, and they do it for too long of a period, but of course there are no eyes to look out for them. Giraffes have got a very loose social structure. In the meantime, though, let's pop over to Tembi now that this giraffe has abandoned us. But giraffes have, as I said, a very loose social structure. Sometimes they'll be alone. Sometimes you'll see them in groups, or sometimes called journeys. But for the most part, You'll normally see the one or two together. That tends to be the most common thing. In the meantime, let's get to Tembi. Thank you for the questions about the giraffe. It's always such an interesting animal to watch. We've got some visitors at Tembi. Our regular elephant bulls hanging around mid-afternoon. We've got an interesting question. Why is a pearl-spotted owlet called an owlet and Scops owl is tiny but not an owlet? I'm sorry, I don't see a name on there, but it's all good. You can give me a shout out later from who the question was from. And I have to admit, the reason I read out the question is actually I'm not too sure myself. It's a very interesting point. They are both pretty small owls. There's also the African barred owlet. And I have to admit, I don't know the answer off the top of my head. Sometimes the naming of the particular bird species is quite contentious in itself. We often see the changing of bird names as things are assessed every year. And we try to get a more uniform naming system so that around the world we have as uniform a system as we can possibly have. As this chap is having a nice scratch behind the ear there. I love watching the elephants when they do that. But yeah, I'll have to come back to you on that pearl-spotted owlet question. I'm not entirely sure how the naming was done in that regard. As I said, the barred and pearl-spotted, both called owlets. But the Scops owl, roughly the same size. As you mentioned, it is dubbed an owl. So I'm not sure if there's any particular reason. I don't know of any particular physiological reason for a difference in the name. But I'm always interested to learn. If anyone out there has any ideas, it's a very interesting question. So thank you for that. Let's go over to a little highlight video while we're watching this beautiful elephant. We've got a lovely video of an elephant washing himself in the water. And just yet another great view from the cat's eye cameras. When I use the term wash, I use it quite loosely. This is much more of a mud bath, getting as much mud as possible underneath the body, behind the ears. I know we've discussed a few times how the elephants do this for a number of reasons, to help with the control of parasites for sure, but also to help them cool down, particularly when they spray the wet mud behind the ears. Of course, a very high number or collection of blood vessels and capillaries behind the ears, and that helps them to cool down. Also why you see the ears flapping more in the hottest part of the day. An amazing view of one of my favorite animals for sure. I can watch elephants for hours. This one just having a grand old time covering himself as much as possible. Very often after behavior like this, you'll see them move off into a sandy area and then give themselves a dust bath. That will help dry out the mud on the outside, give it a sort of cake on the top, and then below that, mud will stay a little cooler, help to keep the elephant a little cooler for just that little bit longer. But an awesome video nonetheless. I don't know if any of you caught that live. And let's go to another one now, one of our favorites. We chatted a little bit about it last week. This is the lilac-breasted roller, of course. Just a beautiful view of this particular bird, and one of Africa's most popular to see, certainly for those who come on safari. We had a big debate last week of 7 versus 8 colors. So I think I'll put it out to the team. I was informed that it is in fact 7, whereas my information tells me 8. But for the rest of you out there, let's get a general consensus going, and the Africam community can make our final decision on whether or not this beautiful bird is 8 or 9 colors in total. But a lovely view of, again, one of Africa's most iconic, beautiful bird species. And one more quick highlight video. This, of course, of a little squirrel. They're all very hard at work right now, not much food available to them. So any nuts, seeds, little bit of fruit that they can find at the moment, they will be happily consuming. And in many cases, putting them in storage. Keep for a rainy day. It's quite far away now for the rainy days for a lot of the areas where our cameras are. But a quick question for you out there, a little trivia question. This is, of course, a squirrel, but I'd love to hear from you what type of squirrel this is. What is the actual name of this species? It's probably the most commonly seen species of squirrel that we see on the cameras, and certainly in the northeastern parts of South Africa. So let's see who out there knows their stuff. What is the name of this squirrel species? The common name will do just fine. I don't think we need to go into the scientific name. Again, a really cool little video. It's not every day we get these little chaps hanging out in one spot, giving us a good view. This little squirrel's been hanging around it they are quite territorial, the males in particular. So it's likely we'll often see them for the next few days and sometimes months. They'll be at the same location, or at least frequenting the same locations. But an awesome little highlight video as always. So let's go back live now. Let's pop over to the Olifants River, I think. Haven't been over there yet today. Let's see who we've got hanging out at the river. It looks like we've got some of our hog friends. Let's keep those answers coming in, folks. We've got a few coming in for what is the actual common name for the squirrels we see. We've got some interesting ones. So I'll let you know. We'll give you a few more minutes. It's always fun watching these little warthog families hanging out together. Again, pretty tough times for the herbivores now as we get into the drier season. Warthogs don't tend to do too well in the droughts, certainly. Often referred to as an indicator species, often the first to really start to struggle when there isn't water available. Of course, they like to get to the freshest part of the grasses. They can dig up the tubers and the root systems as well. Of course, you'll often see them on their knees. Utilizing that snout almost like a shovel to dig into the root systems, especially in the winter where the exposed grasses are not quite as juicy and nutritious as in the summer. Let's go to a highlight video in the meantime, though. We've got a lovely little clip that I think many of you were talking about, certainly on the Facebook page. And this was a view of a frog being decimated by one of the African savanna's more voracious aquatic predators. And no, it's not a shark. There's certainly not a crocodile, but a powerful predator nonetheless, and one we commonly see around our little water holes. This is the Harmakop, with what looks like a platana frog species. You can see it's grabbed that frog, smashing it with its big, powerful bill into the bank. And that's very common for many of your fishing and aquatic bird species. So things like your kingfishers, the harmakops, many of your egrets and herons, when they do catch a fish or frog, even a small mammal, this is often how they will actually kill it. Many people think that it's simply a spear. More often than not, though, they'll actually grab it in their bill, and this is how they'll actually kill the animal itself. And then, more often than not, they'll swallow it whole. We had the privilege to watch that happen live with one of our, if I remember correctly, it was a grey heron, not quite, at Tau, I think. You can see this Plutana little froggy is fighting back with all his might. But in the end, this is not a fight he can win. Obviously a really great meal for the Harmakop. Once it can arrange the frog in the right direction, head first, and that it is no longer putting up a fight, as I said, they will then proceed to actually swallow the frog whole. We'll give it just a few more seconds. Let's see if we actually get to the point where he swallows this frog. In the meantime, let me address some of your answers. So we've got a few that have said tree squirrel, which is not wrong. Eastern grey squirrel, that is a great guess, but not quite. Eastern grey squirrel is actually an invasive squirrel that we get down in the Western Cape, down here in Cape Town. But you're not wrong. Those of you who said tree squirrel, many people refer to it as that, but it is actually a more specific name, mainly because the other commonly seen squirrel that we see in the area is, of course, the ground squirrel. But this one is certainly our most commonly seen tree squirrel. But that's not actually the common name. Let's see who got it right. Well, you didn't put your name, but so one person did get it right, saying it the tree squirrel, yellow-footed squirrel, or Smith's bush squirrel. And the correct answer is Smith's bush squirrel. So now you know. As I said, certainly the most commonly seen tree squirrel species in the region. So well done. I've got the answer right. That is correct. Smith's bush squirrel. So you can all impress your friends at your next dinner party. I'm sure they'll be amazed at your squirrel knowledge. All right. Thank you, Mr. Harmakop. Let's go back live now. Here we are watching our scaly friend, the crocodile, still hanging out on that bank at the Olifants River. Afternoon sun is just catching him beautifully. I see, Marcel, you joined us a little late today. We've already had our debate about the number of colors on a lilac-breasted roller. But it seems the general consensus is it's beautiful. It doesn't matter how many colors it has. And I tend to agree. But us safari guides, you know, we get pedantic about being right all the time. It's also why we speak like politicians, never give straight answers. But I think we'll finish off today at the beautiful Cat Eye, where this Ellie bull is making his way off into the bush, bringing along some of the bush with him, it seems. Thank you, everyone, for joining me. It's always a pleasure hanging out with you for this short time. I'm sorry if I didn't have time to get to your questions, but please do keep those questions coming. We'll be back again tomorrow for our On Point show. We'll be doing something a little different, where we'll be talking about what makes a location great for a Africam camera. We're doing that with Paul, going through all those various details. I'm sure many of you will be interested in that. So do join us tomorrow at the same time for our On Point show. And then, of course, I'll be back again on Thursday for the Ranger show. Same time, same place. So take care of yourselves out there, everyone. Keep your eyes on the cameras and enjoy yourselves. Hopefully something great will come on down. And if not, you get to enjoy the wonderful sounds of the bush and the eternal beauty of even something as common as this lovely little impala ram. So cheers, everybody. We'll see you soon. Ciao for now.